What it's like to be wrongly accused in the 1300s. Imagine, if you will, pulling your weighted blanket up to your chin. Feel the comfort of your memory foam pillow cradling your head. The gentle hum of your air purifier lulls you toward sleep. All is well in your world. Now, imagine waking up to find all of that gone. Instead, you're lying on a straw pallet infested with fleas. Your stomach growls from having eaten nothing but stale bread for 3 days. Outside, you hear the soft patter of rain, the distant bleating of sheep, and, ah yes, the screams of someone being tortured in the Lord's keep. Welcome to What It's Like to Be Wrongly Accused in the 1300s, a bedtime story to make you grateful for modern jurisprudence. Before we begin our journey into medieval injustice, I invite you to dim your lights, close your curtains, and imagine the smell of wet hay, human waste, and that distinctive aroma of flesh that has gone far too long without encountering soap. Comfortable? Good. Because you won't be for long. Tonight we'll walk in the shoes of a simple villager in 14th century Europe. You are about to experience what happens when you're accused of a crime you didn't commit, in a time when innocent until proven. Guilty wasn't just ignored, it hadn't even been invented yet. So settle in, dear viewer. And remember, no matter how bad your day was, at least you weren't accused of witchcraft because your neighbor's cow stopped giving milk the day after you looked at it funny. Sleep tight. Part 1. Good morning, accused. You awaken to the familiar sounds of your humble village. The rooster crowing, the neighbor's children coughing from whatever medieval disease they'll probably die from by Thursday. The sound of your empty stomach reminding you that famine is but one bad harvest away. But today feels different. You can't quite put your finger on it, but there's something in the air. Oh, right. It's the stench of imminent catastrophe. You are a simple tanner, perhaps, or a weaver, or maybe even a modestly successful cooper. You've lived an unremarkable life, devoted to the 3 pillars of medieval existence. Not starving to death, not freezing to death, and not being killed by anything on the impressively long list of things that can kill you in the 14th century. You've been careful to attend Mass regularly, tithe appropriately, and keep your opinions safely locked behind your teeth. Your neighbors consider you, well, like would be a strong word. Let's say they tolerate you with the same wary suspicion everyone has for everyone else, in a world where Satan lurks behind every misfortune. And speaking of your neighbors, there's good wife Agnes, watching you again. She hasn't been the same since her husband died last winter, probably from the consumption, or the pox, or more likely from Agnes herself. You've never trusted Agnes. Something about the way she mutters when you pass by. Something about the way her chickens always seems to lay more eggs than yours. Something about the way she accused 3 previous neighbors of witchcraft when their shadows fell across her doorway. But that's just village life. Nothing to worry about. After all, you haven't done anything wrong. That, dear listener, is your first mistake. In the 1300s, guilt has very little to do with whether you've actually done anything wrong. It's like being tried by a Twitter mob, except the consequences aren't losing your job. They're losing various body parts in creative and excruciating ways. You go about your morning routine. You splash some water on your face from a wooden bucket, ignoring the small insects swimming in it. Extra protein for these lean times. You chew on a crust of bread that's harder than the moral certainty of a Dominican inquisitor. Just another day in paradise. Sound of heavy knocking at the door. Curious. You weren't expecting visitors, especially not at this hour. Perhaps it's the tithe collector come early. Or maybe old Father Thomas needs help with... Door bursts open violently. Oh no! 3 men enter. The village reeve, a local official, accompanied by 2 burly men. In the name of Lord Geoffrey, and by the authority vested in me by God and King, the reeve announces. his voice carrying the practiced gravity of someone who memorized this speech specifically to make up for his complete lack of actual authority. You are hereby accused of the crime of, and here's where we get to, choose your adventure. What crime have you been accused of? The medieval justice system offers so many exciting options. Let's go with blasphemy. Blasphemy against God and His holy church. You blink in confusion. Blasphemy? You? The person who crosses themselves so frequently you've developed calluses on your fingertips? But I've done no such. It seems explanations aren't on today's agenda. Agnes heard you taking the Lord's name in vain when your cartwheel broke last Tuesday. The Reeve continues, looking almost bored. And Thomas the blacksmith's apprentice witnessed you spitting after receiving the Eucharist. Your mind races. The cartwheel? You'd been alone on the road, or so you thought. And the spitting? You'd had a piece of the host stuck in your tooth. For God's sake, God's sake! Oh no, you just thought blasphemy. You're guilty after all. Take note, dear viewer, of how quickly you've gone from, "This must be a mistake," to, "Maybe I am guilty." That's the first psychological victory of the medieval justice system, making you question your own innocence. It's like when your modern phone suggests ads for something you only thought about, except instead of targeted marketing, you get targeted torture. "I don't understand," you stammer, as the men begin to bind your wrists with rough hemp rope. "I've always been a faithful—" "Save it for the priest," grunts one of the men, yanking the rope tight enough to cut into your skin, though he's not likely to listen any more than we are. And just like that, your day has taken a turn. Not unlike when you check the weather app and it says sunny, but you step outside to find yourself in the middle of a hurricane. Except this hurricane is made of false accusations and religious fervor, which in the 1300s is considerably more dangerous than mere wind and rain. As they drag you from your home, you notice your neighbors gathering. There's Agnes, looking righteous. There's the blacksmith, nodding grimly. There's even little Thomas, the 8-year-old boy you gave an apple to last week, now pointing at you and making the sign against evil. It's amazing how quickly everyone decides you're guilty. In the modern world, it takes at least 3 minutes of scrolling through someone's old social media posts to condemn them. In the 1300s, all it takes is one spiteful neighbor and a society more terrified of God's wrath than they are concerned with earthly justice. Welcome to your new reality. You've been accused, and in the 1300s, that's pretty much the same as being convicted. Sleep tight, dear viewer. We're just getting started. Part 2. Legal Rights, or Hilarious Jokes from History. Before we continue, with your journey through the medieval justice system, let's take a moment to dim the lights further and adjust our mindset. Imagine the cold dampness of a late autumn morning, the smell of wood smoke, unwashed bodies, and fear. Yes, fear has a smell, and soon you'll be intimately familiar with it. As you're dragged through the muddy streets of your village, your mind frantically searches for some protection, some right. You might invoke some authority that might intervene on your behalf. In your mind, you run through your legal rights as a peasant accused of blasphemy in the 1300s. 2, 3. That's right. There aren't any. Oh, I'm sorry. Was that list too short? Were you expecting Magna Carta to swoop in and save you? While technically created in 1215, the Magna Carta was primarily concerned with the rights of barons and nobles, not whether some mud-covered peasant gets a fair shake at trial. If it helps, here's what you can expect as the accused. The right to be terrified. The right to confess quickly, potentially reducing the amount of torture. The right to pray that God sees your innocence. He's busy with the plague right now. Please hold. The right to wish you'd been born 700 years later. Please, you say to the Reeve as he marches alongside you. There must be some mistake. I am a faithful servant of God and— Silence, he barks. seemingly enjoying his moment of power. Your words, "Poison the air, blasphemer." You notice a small crowd following behind you now. Your neighbors, people you've lived alongside for years, shared meals with, helped during harvests, are trailing along, whispering and pointing. Some look concerned, but most wear expressions ranging from morbid curiosity to outright glee. Humanity doesn't change much, does it? In your time, people gathered to watch public humiliation. In the 21st century, they just do it with smartphones and hashtags. Will there be a trial? You ask, voice trembling. The Reeve laughs. It's not a pleasant sound of sorts, he says. Father Thomas will hear the evidence and determine your guilt. And who will speak for me? Another laugh, shared by both the Reeve and your guards this time. Speak for you? Who would speak for a blasphemer? It's worth noting that the concept of defense counsel, someone dedicated to arguing your case, wasn't really a thing for common people in the 1300s. It would be like expecting free Wi-Fi in a dungeon, technically possible but really not part of the standard package. As you march toward the church, you realize with growing horror that your fate may already be sealed. The medieval legal system operates on a presumption of guilt rather than innocence. Accusations themselves are considered partial proof because, well, why would someone accuse you if you weren't guilty? It's like being on trial in a group chat. Only your interrogators are drunk monks with clubs and scabies. You're brought to a halt outside the village church. It's not a grand cathedral, just a simple stone building with a wooden door that creaks, ominously as the Reeve pushes it open. Inside you find Father Thomas already waiting. His expression is grim, hands folded inside the sleeves of his habit. Behind him stands a man you don't recognize, better dressed than most villagers with an air of lettered authority that makes your stomach sink even further. The accused, announces the Reeve, shoving you forward. Father Thomas nods solemnly. Brother Adalbert has come from the bishop's court to oversee this matter, he says, gesturing to the well-dressed stranger. Blasphemy is a serious charge. Brother Adalbert steps forward, his eyes cold and assessing. Do you know why you're here? He asks, his voice carrying the cultured tones of someone who has actually read books. I'm accused of blasphemy, you reply, trying to keep your voice steady. But I'm innocent. They all say that, says Brother Adalbert with a thin smile. Yet somehow, they all confess in the end. And there it is, the terrible truth of medieval justice. It's not about determining guilt or innocence. It's about obtaining a confession, one way or another. Sweet dreams, viewer. I hope you're comfortable under your blankets because comfort is about to become a distant memory for your medieval self. And just when you think you've hit rock bottom, you realize it's medieval justice. There's always more basement. Part 3. The questioning, or medieval gaslighting. Let's adjust our atmosphere once more. The church is cold. Stone doesn't hold heat well. But that's not why you're shivering. Candles cast long, wavering shadows across the walls, making the painted saints seem to move, their eyes following you accusingly. The smell of incense mingles with the mustiness of old parchment and fear sweat. Yours. Brother Adalbert circles you slowly, like a well-educated vulture preparing to feast on the corpse of your dignity. Let us begin, he says, producing a small piece of parchment. Agnes of Thornfield claims she heard you exclaim God's wounds when your cart broke. Do you deny this? You hesitate. You might have said something when the wheel broke. Who wouldn't? But you can't specifically recall the words. I don't remember exactly what I said, you admit, which immediately proves to be a tactical error. Convenient, says Brother Adalbert, making a note with a quill. The devil often clouds the memories of those who serve him. Wait, what? When did this become about the devil? I don't serve the devil, you protest, your voice rising with panic. Anger, notes Brother Adalbert calmly. A common response when evil is confronted with truth. Ah, the classic, damned if you do, damned if you don't scenario. In modern terms, it's like being asked, have you stopped embezzling company funds when you've never embezzled anything in your life? Answer yes, you're admitting you used to embezzle. Answer no, you're admitting you're still embezzling. In the 1300s, this rhetorical trap comes with slightly higher stakes than awkward HR meetings. I'm not angry, you say, trying to modulate your voice. I'm frightened. Anyone would be. The righteous have no reason to fear, says Father Thomas, speaking for the first time. His eyes, once kind when he blessed your fields or heard your confession, now regard you with suspicion. Thomas the blacksmith's apprentice, continues Brother Adalbert, claims he saw you spit after receiving the Holy Eucharist. How do you answer this charge? I had a piece caught in my tooth, you explain desperately. I didn't want to touch the host with my fingers. That would be disrespectful. Brother Adalbert exchanges a glance with Father Thomas. So you admit you ejected the body of Christ from your mouth? Father Thomas asks, his voice dripping with horror. No, I mean yes, but not intentionally. It was stuck. First you deny. Remembering your blasphemous words, Brother Adalbert interrupts. And now you freely admit to desecrating the host. Your case grows worse by the moment. Notice how they're twisting everything you say? Medieval interrogation isn't about finding truth. It's about confirming what they already believe. It's like arguing with someone who's convinced that the earth is flat, except instead of blocking you on social media, they can have you burned at the stake. There's also the matter of your unusual prosperity, Father Thomas says, changing tactics unexpectedly. You blink in confusion. Prosperity. Father, I live no better than anyone else. In the village. Yet your crops yielded more than most last harvest, he counters. And your livestock has remained strangely free of the sickness that affected others. That's because I work hard, you stammer. And I follow the proper techniques for crop rotation and animal care. Or perhaps, suggests Brother Adalbert, silkily, there is another explanation. One involving unnatural assistance. Oh no, oh no. This has just escalated from blasphemy to potential accusations of witchcraft or demonic pacts. It's like being pulled over for a broken taillight and suddenly facing questions about a bank robbery 3 states away. I would never. You gasp, genuinely horrified. I am a faithful Christian. I attend Mass every Sunday and Holy Day. I pay my tithes. Yet Agnes reports you were absent from Mass on the feast of St. Wulfric, Father Thomas notes gravely. You rack your brain. St. Wulfric? When even was that? There are literally thousands of saints in the medieval calendar, many with local significance only. I don't recall missing Mass, you say weakly. More convenient memory lapses, brother, Adalbert notes, writing again. Perhaps we need to help you remember more clearly. Those words send a chill down your spine that has nothing to do with the church's temperature. What do you mean, you ask, though you already suspect the answer. Brother Adalbert smiles thinly. Sometimes the body must suffer for the soul to find truth. The pain of the flesh can unlock the tongue that the devil has tied. If you're listening to this in bed, dear viewer, you might want to check under it. Not for monsters. They're all here in the story with you. No. Check for the modern legal documents that protect you from being tortured into confessing crimes you didn't commit. Those are far more effective at keeping the monsters at bay. In the absence of reliable evidence or consistent witness testimony, medieval courts often turned to more persuasive methods of interrogation. After all, why bother with the complexities of truth when pain is so much more straightforward? This isn't necessary, you plead, as the Reeve and his men step forward at Brother Adalbert's gesture. I'll tell you whatever you want to know. Excellent, says Brother Adalbert. Then tell us about your blasphemy and your pact with the devil. But there's nothing to tell, Brother Adalbert sighs, as if disappointed by your stubbornness. "Take the accused to the manor house," he instructs the reeve. "Lord Geoffrey has graciously offered his facilities for our investigation." Facilities is a rather euphemistic term for what you suspect awaits you. It's like calling a modern slaughterhouse a cow retirement home. As you're dragged back outside, the gathered crowd has grown larger. Word travels fast in a small village, especially when that word is potential witch burning. You see faces you've known all your life looking at you with disgust, fear, and worst of all, excitement. Your protests fall on deaf ears as you're marched toward the manor house on the hill. The justice system of the 1300s has begun its grinding process, and you are but grist for its mill. Sleep well, dear viewer. In the next part of our bedtime story, we'll explore what happens when medieval interrogators decide to get hands-on with their questioning. And just remember, whatever happened in your group chat today probably won't end with thumbscrews. Probably Part 4, Persuasive Methods, or Medieval Enhanced Interrogation. Let's create the proper atmosphere for this next section. If you're listening in bed, I want you to make yourself slightly uncomfortable. Perhaps lie on your arm until it falls asleep. Feel that pins and needles sensation. That's but a whisper, a ghost, a mere memory of the physical sensations awaiting you in medieval custody. The manor house's basement is everything a proper medieval dungeon should be. Damp stone walls, flickering torches casting more shadow than light. The faint but unmistakable odor of substances you'd rather not identify, and tools. Various implements hanging on the walls or arranged carefully on tables. Metal things with points and edges and screws. Wooden devices with straps and cranks. None of them designed for anything remotely pleasant. Standing in the center of the room is a broad-shouldered man with scarred hands and a face that suggests he genuinely enjoys coming to work each day. This, you presume, is Lord Geoffrey's torturer, the local expert in helping people remember things they never actually did. Brother Adalbert gestures toward you. "This one needs encouragement to speak truthfully," he tells the torturer. "Nothing excessive. We need a confession, not a corpse." The torturer nods, looking you over with the appraising eye of a craftsman assessing his materials. "As you wish, brother. Will you be observing?" "Of course," replies Brother Adalbert, taking a seat on a wooden stool. "The Church must witness the revelation of truth." It's worth noting that while the Church officially frowned upon torture and bloodshed, Ecclesia non sitit sanguinem, or the Church does not thirst for blood, they found a convenient workaround. Clerics would simply have secular authorities do the dirty work while they supervised. It's like claiming you're vegetarian while paying someone else to eat a steak on your behalf. "Remove your shirt," the torturer instructs you. Your hands shake. As you comply, the cold air raising goosebumps on your exposed skin. "Now," says Brother Adalbert from his comfortable perch, "let's try again. Tell us about your blasphemy." "There's nothing to tell," you insist, your voice already quavering with fear. "I'm innocent." Brother Adalbert sighs and nods to the torturer, who approaches with a grim smile and something that looks distressingly like oversized tweezers. "Wait," you cry. "What do you want me to say?" "Only the truth," replies Brother Adalbert, "though I find most people discover what truth is after a bit of contemplation." The torturer grips your arm firmly. "Last chance," he says almost kindly. "It goes easier if you confess early. I'll spare you the graphic details of medieval torture techniques. This is, after all, a bedtime story, and I wouldn't want you to have nightmares. Though that might help you empathize with our protagonist's situation more authentically. Suffice it to say, the human body has an impressive number of nerve endings, and medieval torturers had discovered most of them through enthusiastic trial and error. You hang limply in the torturer's grip, sweat and tears mingling on your face. "How long has it been? Hours?" Days? Time loses meaning when each moment brings new pain. Let's review what we've established, says Brother Adalbert, his voice showing no sign of distress at what he's witnessed. You admit to taking the Lord's name in vain. You nod weakly. You'd admit to being the Pope's secret love child at this point if it would make the pain stop. And you admit to deliberately desecrating the host? Another nod. And you missed Mass to consort with unusual entities? Your hesitation earns you another burst of agony. Yes, you gasp. Yes, I did all of it. Brother Adalbert smiles with satisfaction. You see? The truth emerges. But we still need to determine the extent of your heresy. Did others participate in your blasphemy? Give me names. Ah, the medieval version of... But wait, there's more. Just when you think you've confessed to everything, they find new depths to plumb. This is how witch hunts spread. One tormented person naming others in a desperate bid to end their suffering. It's like a pyramid scheme, except instead of losing money, people lose fingernails. There was no one else, you wheeze. I acted alone. The torturer reaches for a new implement. Wait, you cry. Perhaps Widow Jensen was there. And Tom the Cooper? You're naming people essentially at random now, your mind fracturing under the strain. Tom once cheated you in a trade. Widow Jensen's goat ate flowers from your garden. They're as innocent as you are, but self-preservation has a way of eroding moral considerations. Brother Adalbert nods, satisfied. We'll investigate these accomplices. For now, you'll be returned to a cell to reflect on your confession. Tomorrow, you'll sign a written statement of your crimes before the formal trial. Trial? You ask, a flicker of hope kindling in your battered body. Then I still have a chance to prove my innocence? The laugh that escapes Brother Adalbert's lips is genuinely amused. The trial is to determine your punishment, not your guilt. That has already been established by your confession. And there we have the medieval logic puzzle. You're guilty because you confessed, and you confessed because they tortured you. And they tortured you because they knew you were guilty. It's a perfect circle, like a wedding ring made of razor wire. As you're dragged back to your cell, a glorified hole in the ground beneath the manor house, you wonder if anyone has ever survived this process with their innocence intact. The answer, dear listener, as you snuggle deeper under your blankets, is not comforting. And just when you think you've hit rock bottom in medieval justice, remember, there's always more basement. Part 5. Accommodations, or One-Star Dungeon Review. As we continue our bedtime journey, I invite you to make yourself even more uncomfortable. Perhaps sit up in bed, feel the cool air on your skin. If you have a pet, imagine it's a rat coming to investigate whether you're dead yet. If you have a glass of water nearby, consider it a luxury our medieval protagonist would literally kill for right now. Your new accommodations make your humble village hut look like a palace by comparison. The cell is roughly 6 feet by 4 feet. Not quite a modern walk-in closet, but more spacious than the coffin you'll likely occupy soon. The floor is packed dirt, damp with substances you choose not to identify too closely. The walls are stone, slick with moisture that glistens, in the faint light from a tiny barred window near the ceiling. Your cellmate is a skeleton, not a living person, an actual skeleton chained to the wall, grinning at you with eternal patience. You wonder if they were also guilty of something they didn't do. Medieval prison cells weren't designed for long-term accommodation. They were holding pens where the accused awaited trial or punishment. Comfort was not a consideration. Quite the opposite. The discomfort was part of the process, softening you up for what came next. Think of it as the medieval equivalent of putting you on hold with terrible music playing, except the music is the sound of your own teeth chattering and the occasional distant scream. You collapse in the corner furthest from your bony roommate, every part of your body throbbing from the questioning. Your mind reels with the impossibility of your situation. Yesterday, you were a respectable villager with a place in society. Today, you're a confessed blasphemer awaiting sentencing. Hours pass, or perhaps days. It's difficult to tell in the near-constant darkness. Your stomach gnaws with hunger until, eventually, a jailer appears with a moldy crust of bread and a ladle of water so dirty you can see things swimming in it. "Eat," he grunts, shoving both through a slot in the door. Brother Adalbert wants you alive for the trial. You practically lunge for the food and water, dignity forgotten. The bread tastes of rot and despair, but it's sustenance. The water makes you gag, but your body craves hydration more than it fears disease. Not that disease should be far down your list of concerns. Your cell is a paradise for rats, fleas, lice, and all manner of vermin. Within hours, you're scratching at bites and beginning to develop a cough from the damp air. It's worth noting that medieval prisons didn't provide amenities. No soap, no toilet, no clean bedding. Many prisoners actually had to pay for their own food and other necessities, assuming they had family willing to bring them supplies. If not, they might simply starve before their case was even heard. It's like a hotel where you pay for everything, get nothing, and check out feet first in a shroud. Sleep comes in fitful bursts, interrupted by the sound of rats, the ache of your injuries, and the cold seeping into your bones from the stone floor. When you dream, it's of home, of freedom, of a world where words like justice and truth still have meaning. You're awakened by the sound of keys rattling in the lock. The door creaks open to reveal Brother Adalbert, accompanied by the reeve, and a thin man clutching a piece of parchment and writing implements. "Time to make your confession official," Brother Adalbert announces. "Brother Simon will record your testimony." The thin man, Brother Simon, apparently, sets himself up on a small stool, quill poised over parchment. "I will ask questions, and you will answer truthfully," Brother Adalbert explains, though his tone suggests that truthfully means according to the narrative we've established. Did you, on the feast day of St. Wulfric, willfully and deliberately take the Lord's name in vain when your cart broke on the North Road? You know what's expected. "Yes," you croak, your throat raw from thirst and screaming. Did you deliberately desecrate the Holy Eucharist by spitting it upon the ground in contempt of our Lord Jesus Christ? Yes. The word tastes of ash and surrender. Did you miss Mass on holy days to consort with unusual entities in the woods beyond the village? You hesitate. This seems like a significant escalation from blasphemy to something more sinister. But the memory of the torturer's tools is fresh. Yes. And did Widow Jensen and Tom the Cooper join you in these heretical activities? Another pause. Are you really going to condemn innocent people? But then again, they'd likely do the same to you if the situations were reversed. Self-preservation is a powerful instinct. "Yes," you whisper, damning yourself further. Brother Simon's quill scratches across the parchment, recording your confession for posterity. When he's finished, he holds the parchment before you. "Make your mark," Brother Adalbert instructs. You can't read, few peasants can, but you recognize the crude X that represents your signature in the medieval world. With a trembling hand, you take the quill and make the mark, sealing your fate. "Very good," says Brother Adalbert, taking the parchment. "The trial will be held tomorrow in the village square. Lord Geoffrey himself will preside." What? What will happen to me? You dare to ask. Brother Adalbert regards you with something almost like pity. "That depends on Lord Geoffrey's mercy and the extent of your penitence. Blasphemy can be forgiven by the Church with appropriate penance, a flicker of hope. Perhaps you won't die after all. Though," he adds as an afterthought, "consorting with dark entities is a more serious matter. We shall see." And with that, they leave you alone again in your cell, with only the skeleton for company. You wonder if your bony friend also signed a confession. You wonder if they also felt that momentary hope before the end. Rest well, dear viewer, in your comfortable bed, in your world of habeas corpus and rules of evidence. Tomorrow we'll discover what medieval justice considers a fair trial, and why you might prefer summary execution to the tender mercies of 14th century jurisprudence. And remember, no matter how bad your day was, at least you didn't have to drink water with visible organisms swimming in it. Unless you're into that sort of thing. No judgment here. Part 6. A new community. Your recovery proceeds in lurching increments. Some days bring noticeable improvement. Others seem to drag you backward into fever and pain. But gradually, stubbornly, your body heals. The scars will remain forever. A latticework of raised flesh across your back. The twisted remains of your burned hand. And most prominently, the brand upon your forehead that marks you as unwelcome in civilized society. But you are alive, and slowly discovering what that means in your new reality. Time to change your dressings, announces Brother Thomas, entering the healing house with fresh bandages. Unlike his title suggests, he's no longer affiliated with any official church. He was a monastery infirmarian before questioning certain church practices too vocally. I can do it myself today, you tell him, sitting up with only a mild grimace of discomfort. Thomas raises an eyebrow. Progress. Soon you'll be telling me you're ready to... Part 2. The Trial of the Damned Sleep. What precious little you manage to get provides no comfort in a medieval prison. Dreams aren't an escape, but rather a cruel reminder of what you've lost. Also, there's a rat on your face. You awake with a start, swatting at the furry creature that had decided your cheek made. An excellent dining table. Dawn's weak light filters through the tiny slit that passes for a window in your cell, illuminating dancing dust motes and highlighting the various bodily fluids staining the walls. Today is your trial, the day when medieval justice, an oxymoron, if ever there was one, will decide your fate. The cell door opens with a screech that would make a banshee cover its ears. 2 guards, smelling strongly of ale despite the early hour, haul you to your feet. Time for justice, one says, his breath so foul it makes your eyes water. Lord Geoffrey doesn't like to be kept waiting. He's got 3 blasphemers, a cow thief, and a woman who looked at her neighbor funny to judge before midday meal. Efficient system you've got here, you mutter before you can stop yourself. The guard cuffs you across the face. The only system you need to worry about is whether your bowels will empty before or after they hang you. Justice, in the 14th century, operated on what modern legal scholars would call the "let's get this over with so we can have lunch" principle. The average trial lasted about as long as a modern TikTok video, though with considerably more permanent consequences. They march you through the village, past faces you've known your entire life. Neighbors, friends, people who've broken bread with you, celebrated harvests alongside you, mourned with you during times of plague and famine. Now they look at you like you're already a corpse. Some spit. Others make the sign of the cross. A few, those with more imagination than sense, whisper that they always knew there was something off about you. Human memory is remarkably flexible, especially when there's blame to be assigned. Suddenly, everyone remembers that time you looked askance at the church, or how your crops did suspiciously well during last year's drought, or how your chicken laid an egg with 2 yolks, clearly a sign of diabolic influence. Your childhood friend, Thomas, turns away as you pass. His wife pulls their children closer, as if blasphemy might be contagious. "I delivered your second child," you want to scream at him. But what would be the point? Fear is a more potent force than decades of friendship. The village square has been transformed into an impromptu courtroom. A table has been set up before the church steps, where Lord Geoffrey, a man whose primary qualifications for dispensing justice are owning lots of land and not being dead yet, sits looking bored. beside him is Father Matthias, the parish priest, who seems considerably more interested in the proceedings. His eyes gleam with the special fervor of a man who believes he's saving souls by condemning bodies. Brother Adalbert stands to one side, your confession clutched in his hand like a trophy. The crowd parts as you're dragged forward, creating a bubble of contamination around you. The guards shove you to your knees before the table. Lord Geoffrey sighs and puts down the chicken leg he's been gnawing on. So this is the blasphemer? And consorter with dark forces, my lord, Brother Adalbert adds helpfully. Indeed? Lord Geoffrey raises an eyebrow, suddenly more interested. Dark forces are significantly more entertaining than standard blasphemy. Proceed. Brother Adalbert clears his throat and reads your confession aloud, adding flourishes that weren't there when you signed it. Suddenly, your woodland meetings with unusual entities have become full-blown Sabbaths with demons who have names and titles worthy of nobility. The accused has named accomplices, Brother Adalbert announces, Widow Jensen and Tom the Cooper. A gasp ripples through the crowd. Tom the Cooper, standing at the back, goes pale. Widow Jensen isn't present, probably still in a cell like the one you just left. Bring them forward, Lord Geoffrey commands. Guards move through the crowd to seize Tom, who protests loudly. It's lies, all lies. I've never dabbled in heresy. That's exactly what a heretic would say, someone in the crowd helpfully points out. Medieval justice operated on a principle we might call accusational transference. Once accused, the best defense was to accuse others, creating a wonderfully efficient system where eventually everyone was guilty of something. It's like a chain letter, but instead of bad luck, you get hanged. While Tom is being dragged away, Lord Geoffrey turns his attention back to you. The evidence against you is compelling, he says, gesturing to the parchment as if the mere existence of writing is proof enough. Do you have anything to say in your defense? Here it is, your moment to speak, to tell the truth. To proclaim your innocence, you open your mouth, but what emerges is a raspy whisper that even you can barely hear. Fear has stolen your voice just when you need it most. Lord Geoffrey leans forward. Speak up. I didn't. You begin, but then catch Brother Adalbert's eye. The monk makes a subtle gesture toward the back of the crowd, where the torturer stands, arms crossed, implements jangling at his belt. The message is clear. Recant now, and it's back to the questioning room. You swallow hard. I confess. To all charges, my lord, I beg the mercy of the court and the forgiveness of God. Father Matthias nods approvingly. Confession is good for the soul. It is the first step toward redemption. Lord Geoffrey seems almost disappointed. A denial would have been more entertaining. Very well. Given the severity of the charges and your own confession, I sentence you to, My lord! A voice calls from the crowd. A figure pushes forward. It's Master Edwin, the village herbalist, a man known for his learning and occasional brushes with ecclesiastical disapproval for suggesting that perhaps not all illness is caused by sin or demons. This person was in my care 3 days past, treating a fever with one of my remedies. They were delirious, speaking nonsense. Whatever blasphemy they uttered was the product of illness, not willful sin. A murmur runs through the crowd. Brother Adalbert's face darkens. Are you suggesting, he says slowly, that the church has erred in its accusation? Master Edwin hesitates. He's walking a dangerous line, and he knows it. Not at all, brother. I merely offer context that might mitigate the sentence. Lord Geoffrey looks between them, clearly enjoying the tension. Continue. My lord, Edwin says, in my decades of service to this village, I have known the accused to be a person of good character. Perhaps a period of penance and public contrition would serve justice better than more permanent measures. You barely dare to breathe. Is it possible? Could you escape with your life? Lord Geoffrey strokes his beard thoughtfully. The Church seeks to save souls, not merely punish bodies, he muses, looking to Father Matthias. The priest nods slowly. This is true, and a public penance would serve as a powerful example to others. Brother Adalbert looks like he's bitten into a rotten fruit, but knows better than to contradict both Lord Geoffrey and Father Matthias directly. Very well, Lord Geoffrey announces. For the crime of blasphemy, you are sentenced to stand in the pillory for 3 days, followed by a public flogging of 40 lashes. For the more serious charge of consorting with dark entities, the crowd leans forward collectively. Given the mitigating testimony and your contrition, you will undergo trial by ordeal to determine the truth of this matter. Oh dear, this is where things get truly medieval. While you might be thinking, great, a trial. I'm innocent, so I'll be fine. Well, that's adorably modern of you. Medieval trials by ordeal weren't designed to determine innocence so much as to create really memorable public spectacles. Trial by hot iron, Lord Geoffrey continues. If the accused is innocent, God will protect them from harm. If guilty, the iron will burn the flesh as a sign of divine judgment. The crowd murmurs in approval. Nothing livens up a Tuesday like watching someone grab a red-hot piece of metal. The ordeal will take place tomorrow at noon, Lord Geoffrey concludes. Until then, return the accused to confinement. As the guards drag you back toward your cell, you catch Master Edwin's eye. He gives you the smallest of nods, a silent promise that he hasn't abandoned you completely. It's a cold comfort as the cell door slams shut behind you once more, but it's the first genuine comfort you've had since this nightmare began. Part 6. Trial by Ordeal. You've spent the night alternating between prayer and contemplating which fingers you can most afford to lose. The left hand seems the obvious choice. You need your right for most work. But then again, losing any digits in an agricultural society is essentially a death sentence of a different sort. The cell door opens to reveal not a guard, but Master Edwin, carrying a small pouch. I don't have much time, he whispers, glancing nervously over his shoulder. I've brought salve. Salve? You repeat stupidly. For the ordeal. Listen carefully. Wash your hand thoroughly in the water they provide, for purification. Then, when no one is looking, apply this to your palm and between your fingers. He presses the small pouch into your hand. What is it? Better you don't know, but it may protect you, somewhat. The iron will still burn, there's no avoiding that, but perhaps not as deeply as it might. Why are you helping me? You ask. Edwin's face hardens. Because I've seen too many good people consumed by fear and superstition, and because next time it could be me they come for. Footsteps sound in the corridor. Edwin straightens. Remember, wash thoroughly first. The preparation won't work otherwise. He slips out just as a guard appears with a hunk of bread and more questionable water. Eat, the guard grunts. Lord Geoffrey doesn't want you fainting before the ordeal, takes all the entertainment value out of it. Trials by ordeal came in various charming varieties in medieval Europe. Besides hot iron, there was trial by water, where floating meant you were guilty and sinking meant you were innocent. Super convenient for the court either way. Trial by combat, hope you've been keeping up with your sword practice, and even trial by ingestion, where you'd be fed a dry piece of consecrated bread and cheese. If you choked, clearly God was judging you guilty. It was essentially fear factor, but with death instead of cash prizes. Noon approaches with the inexorable dread of the tide coming in when you're chained to the beach. Guards escort you to the village square, where an even larger crowd has gathered than before. Nothing draws a medieval audience like the prospect of divinely sanctioned mutilation. In the center of the square, a blacksmith's forge has been set up. Inside it, a chunk of iron is heating to a glowing orange. Beside the forge stands Father Matthias, ready to sanctify the proceedings and interpret God's will through the medium of burnt flesh. Lord Geoffrey sits in a chair of honor, now with a full cup of wine to accompany the entertainment. Brother, Adalbert stands nearby, his face a mask of pious anticipation. You're led to a basin of blessed water and instructed to wash your hands thoroughly, to remove any unnatural substances that might interfere with God's judgment. Father Matthias explains. As you plunge your hands into the cool water, you remember Edwin's instructions. You wash diligently, aware of hundreds of eyes upon you. When your hands are cleaned to Father Matthias's satisfaction, you're led to stand before the forge. The heat radiates outward in waves, already uncomfortable from feet away. Bring forth the iron, Father Matthias intones. The blacksmith uses tongs to remove the glowing metal bar, about the length and width of a large kitchen knife, from the coals. The accused will carry the sacred iron for 3 paces, Father Matthias announces to the crowd. If innocent, God will protect them from harm. If guilty, the mark of sin will be evident upon their flesh. There's a moment, a brief, mad moment, where you consider running. But where would you go? How far would you get before they caught you? And running would be an admission of guilt as clear as any confession. With everyone distracted by the ceremonial preparations, you quickly reach into your sleeve where you've hidden Edwin's pouch and smear its contents across your palm and between your fingers. The substance is slick and oddly cool against your skin. Step forward, Father Matthias commands. Your legs feel leaden as you approach. The blacksmith holds out the glowing iron. Take it, Father Matthias says, and walk 3 paces, with God's judgment in your hand. The crowd falls silent. Even the birds seem to hold their breath. With a silent prayer to any deity who might be listening, you reach out and grasp the iron. Pain. White-hot, searing pain like nothing you've ever experienced. Edwin's salve provides some protection, but it's like trying to stop a raging fire with a damp cloth. The smell of your own burning flesh fills your nostrils as you force yourself to take 1 step. Then another. 1 more. Just 1 more. The world narrows to a tunnel of agony with a single point of light at the end. Completing the 3rd step, you take it. It is done, Father Matthias declares, as the blacksmith takes back the iron with his tongs. You stand there, swaying slightly, your branded hand held out before you, already beginning to blister. Father Matthias examines it closely while the crowd cranes their necks for a better view. The wound will be bound, he announces. In 3 days, we shall unwrap it and read God's judgment in the healing. Fun fact, some clever medieval folk discovered that certain herbs and materials could provide limited protection against burns, potentially rigging the ordeal in their favor. The church caught on and began to scrutinize participants for cheating, which they regarded as not only criminal but sacrilegious. You weren't just trying to beat the system, you were trying to subvert God's will, which, when you think about it, is taking "the house always wins" to a whole new theological level. Your hand is wrapped in clean linen, then sealed with the church's wax stamp to prevent tampering. The pain is blinding, relentless. You're barely conscious as they lead you back to your cell. 3 days, the guard reminds you as he locks the door. Then we'll see what God thinks of you. You collapse onto the damp straw, cradling your bandaged hand. The pain pulses with each heartbeat, a constant reminder of how thin the line between life and death has become. Through the haze of agony, you recall Edwin's whispered advice from earlier. After the ordeal, if possible, keep the hand elevated and pray for clean healing. Clean healing, because that's the true test. When they remove the bandage in 3 days, if the wound is clean, healing without major infection, you'll be deemed innocent. If it's festering and corrupted, guilt will be established as clearly as if God himself had testified against you. And in this filthy cell, surrounded by rats and human waste, with no fresh water or clean air, keeping a burn wound clean seems about as likely as the king stopping by to make you his heir. Time passes differently when each moment is defined by pain. The hours stretch and contract like a drunkard snoring. Your world has narrowed to the throbbing pulse of your burned hand and the occasional visits from a jailer who seems increasingly annoyed that you haven't died yet to simplify his schedule. The fever set in on the second day. By the third, you're drifting in and out of consciousness, your dreams and reality blurring together in a tapestry of delirium. In one particularly vivid hallucination, your bony cellmate sits up and offers advice on the afterlife. The food's no better, he assures you, but at least the company's more interesting. The cell door opens, flooding the space with unwelcome light. Father Matthias enters, accompanied by Brother Adalbert and Lord Geoffrey. Apparently, your judgment merits the full attendance of the local authority figures. Bring the accused, Lord Geoffrey commands. 2 guards haul you to your feet. The sudden movement sends waves of nausea through you, but there's nothing in your stomach to expel. Once again, you're paraded through the village to the square. The crowd seems even larger this time. Word has spread from neighboring villages about the trial by ordeal and its pending resolution. You're positioned before a table where Father Matthias stands ready with a small knife to cut away the bandage. Today, we witness God's judgment, he announces to the crowd. If the wound shows clean healing, the accused will be deemed innocent of consorting with dark entities and will serve only the sentence for blasphemy. If the wound festers, it confirms guilt, and the penalty will be death. He turns to you. Present your hand. With effort, you raise your bandaged hand. The wrapping is dirty and spotted with blood and fluid that has seeped through over the days. Father Matthias cuts the wax seal and begins to unwrap the bandage. Each layer revealed brings a fresh wave of pain as the fabric pulls at your damaged skin. The crowd leans forward collectively, eager for the final unveiling. The last layer comes away. Your hand is a nightmare landscape of red, black, and yellow, burned flesh, dead tissue, and signs of infection. The smell alone causes several onlookers to gag. Father Matthias examines it closely, his face betraying nothing. The wound shows corruption, he finally pronounces. The crowd murmurs. Lord Geoffrey nods gravely, as if he expected nothing else. However, Father Matthias continues, surprising everyone. There are also signs of healing beginning at the edges. Brother Adalbert steps forward, clearly unhappy with this equivocation. Surely the corruption is evidence enough of guilt. Father Matthias gives him a measured look. I am trained in reading these signs, brother. The corruption is present but not absolute. This suggests partial guilt. Perhaps the accused was influenced by dark forces without full knowledge or consent. It's a theological out, one that could save your life. Lord Geoffrey, sensing the politics at play between the churchmen, decides to impose his own authority on the proceedings. Then we shall split the difference in sentencing. Not death, but not mere penance either. He stands, addressing the crowd as much as you. For blasphemy and partial corruption by dark influences, I sentence you to be publicly flogged with 50 lashes, after which you will be branded with the mark of sin, and banished from this village and all lands under my protection, upon pain of death should you return. You sway on your feet, torn between relief at escaping execution and despair at what lies ahead. Banishment in medieval society is its own kind of death sentence. Without community, without protection, you're prey for bandits, wild animals, and the elements. The sentence will be carried out immediately, Lord Geoffrey declares. Prepare the post. Banishment was often considered a fate worse than quick execution. Medieval society functioned on belonging to a family, a village, a guild, a faith community. To be cast out was to lose your entire identity and social safety net. It's like being unfriended by everyone simultaneously in a world where social media isn't just how you get birthday wishes, but how you get food, shelter, protection, and medical Care guards drag you to a wooden post erected in the center of the square. Your shirt is torn away, exposing your back to the crowd and the elements. Your arms are stretched around the post and bound with rough rope. The crowd has formed a circle, leaving a clear space for the flogger to work. You hear him before you see him, the whistle of the whip as he tests it with a few practice swings. Count the lashes, a guard instructs you. If you lose count, we start again. The first lash takes your breath away. It's as if someone has laid a line of fire across your back. Before you can recover, the second falls, crossing the first. 1, 2. You gasp, knowing that keeping count is your only task now, your only way through this nightmare. By the 10th lash, your back is a map of pain, each new stroke adding another territory of agony. Blood runs freely, soaking what remains of your clothing and dripping onto the ground. 11, 12. Someone in the crowd is counting along with you. Then several people. It becomes a grim chant accompanying each crack of the whip. Somewhere, around 20, you begin to detach from your body, floating above the scene like a disinterested observer. You see yourself sagging against the post, held up only by the ropes. You see the flogger, a man simply doing his job with professional detachment. You see the faces in the crowd, some gleeful, some horrified, some stoically blank. 31, 32. The chant continues, but your voice is no longer part of it. Your lips move, but no sound emerges. The guard notices. Louder, he demands. Count so all can hear God's justice. You summon what little strength remains. 33, you rasp, your voice barely audible over the sound of the whip. Time loses meaning. There is only the rhythm of pain, the count, the brief interval of anticipation, and then fresh agony. 49, 50. A sigh ripples through the crowd. Relief, disappointment, or simple recognition that this particular spectacle has reached its conclusion. But it's not over. Not quite. Bring the brand, Lord Geoffrey commands. You're cut down from the post, unable to stand on your own. Guards hold you kneeling, your head lolling forward. The blacksmith approaches with a metal rod, at the end of which glows the shaped iron, a symbol combining a letter with a Christian cross, marking you as both sinner and exile. Where? The blacksmith asks. The forehead, Brother Adalbert responds quickly. So all who encounter this sinner will know their crime and shun them accordingly. Father Matthias frowns but does not contradict him. The blacksmith looks to Lord Geoffrey, who nods his assent. 2 guards grasp your head, holding it steady and exposed. The brand comes closer. The heat precedes it, a promise of the pain to follow. Contact, you scream, a sound so primal it barely seems human. The smell of your own burning flesh fills your nostrils for the second time in less than a week. After what seems an eternity, the brand is withdrawn, leaving its permanent mark upon you, a symbol that will identify you as unwelcome anywhere civilized people gather. It is done, Lord Geoffrey declares. The sentence has been carried out. The criminal will be taken to the edge of my lands and cast out, never to return. Perhaps the cruelest aspect of medieval justice wasn't the physical punishment, but the social death that accompanied it. In a world without photographs or instant communication, a physical brand ensured that your crime would precede you wherever you went. A permanent scarlet letter that made starting over nearly impossible. Think of it as the original negative Yelp review, written in scar tissue. You're barely conscious as they load you onto a cart like so much unwanted cargo. Your back is a mass of open wounds, your forehead throbbing with fresh burn, your hand a twisted claw of partially healed injury. Fever clouds your mind, making the journey a series of disconnected impressions rather than a coherent experience. The cart stops. You're roughly pulled down and dropped onto the dirt road. This is the boundary of Lord Geoffrey's lands, A guard informs you, though you're past comprehending much. Cross back, and your life is forfeit. Something is dropped beside you. A small bundle containing a water skin and what feels like bread. A final act of nominal mercy, or perhaps just a nod to Christian charity for the guard's own spiritual comfort. The cart turns and recedes into the distance, leaving you alone on the road, branded, broken, and cast out from everything and everyone you've ever known. As consciousness fades, you wonder if your crime was really blasphemy after all. Perhaps your true sin was simply being in the wrong place when someone needed a scapegoat. Or maybe it was naivete, believing that truth and justice were concepts that applied to ordinary people in a world ruled by superstition and power. The last thing you see before darkness claims you is a raven landing on a nearby tree branch, regarding you with intelligent eyes. In your delirium, you wonder if it's an omen or simply nature's first undertaker coming to assess its next meal. And so, dear viewer, our journey through medieval injustice comes to its bleak conclusion. Our protagonist's fate remains uncertain. Death from exposure or infection seems likely, though history is full of surprising survivors. What's certain is that their life, as they knew it, is over. A new existence may await, one of begging, of joining the ranks of outlaws, or perhaps finding sanctuary with others cast out by society. But that's a bedtime story for another night. As you drift off to sleep in your world of DNA evidence and habeas corpus, remember how recently in human history justice was just another word for whatever those in power decided, and perhaps spare a thought for those places in our modern world where it still is. Sweet dreams, and if you enjoyed this journey through medieval nightmare fuel, don't forget to like and subscribe. Next week, what it was like to be a surgeon's patient in the 16th century. Spoiler alert, the anesthetic is a wooden spoon to bite down on and a prayer that you pass out quickly. Sleep tight and be grateful you weren't born in 1347. Part 7. The Outcast's Road. If you're still awake, and I'm honestly impressed if you are, let's continue our cheerful bedtime journey through medieval injustice. Close your eyes and imagine the smell of earth after rain, the distant howl of wolves, and the unique bouquet of multiple untreated infected wounds. Consciousness returns like an unwelcome guest, bringing with it a symphony of pain. Your back feels like it's been peeled off and replaced backward. Your branded forehead throbs with each heartbeat. Your burned hand has swollen to twice its normal size. But you're alive, which is either a miracle or a curse, depending on your theological perspective. Night is falling. You manage to drag yourself to the edge of the road, beneath the dubious shelter of a gnarled oak tree. The small bundle of provisions the guards left seems miles away, though in reality it's merely feet. With agonizing effort, you reach it, fumbling one-handed with the crude knot. Inside, a water skin containing perhaps a day's worth of questionable water, a chunk of bread already growing stale, and, surprisingly, a small knife. Not much of a blade, but enough to cut food, perhaps whittle a walking stick, or defend yourself against a very small and cooperative attacker. You take a careful sip of water, then tear off a piece of bread with your teeth. Your body craves sustenance, even as the pain makes the thought of eating nauseating. As full darkness descends, the sounds of the medieval night emerge, rustling in the underbrush, the distant hooting of owls, and the occasional snap of twigs that could be anything from a fox to a bear to a band of outlaws. You're utterly vulnerable, too injured to run, too weak to fight, too infamous to seek help from decent folk. For the first time, the full reality of your situation crashes down upon you with more force than any lash. You will almost certainly die out here, alone and unmourned. Banishment in the Middle Ages wasn't just a matter of go find another town. The medieval landscape was divided into territories controlled by lords who generally didn't appreciate receiving another lord's criminal rejects. Towns had walls and gates specifically to keep undesirables out. And in a world without modern medicine, even minor injuries could quickly become fatal. It's like being kicked out of all Starbucks locations simultaneously while suffering from caffeine withdrawal and third-degree burns. Sleep comes in fitful bursts, interrupted by pain and the cold seeping up from the ground. Your fever has returned with reinforcements, bringing vivid hallucinations that dance at the edges of your vision. Morning light finds you shivering uncontrollably despite the early summer warmth. Infection has taken firm hold, sending tendrils of poison throughout your system. You manage a few more sips of water but can't stomach the thought of food. Movement on the road catches your attention. A cart approaches, driven by a hooded figure. Your first instinct is to hide. Anyone finding you in this state would likely assume you're a criminal, which technically you are, and either avoid you or finish what the flogging began. But you're too weak to move, too obvious in your broken state to escape notice. The cart slows as it approaches. "Well," a familiar voice says, "you look even worse than I expected." The hood falls back to reveal Master Edwin, the herbalist whose testimony saved you from execution. "I've been waiting for them to dump you," he continues, climbing down from the cart, "though I feared I might be collecting a corpse." "Why?" you croak, your voice barely functioning. "Why help you?" Edwin kneels beside you, examining your injuries with professional detachment. "Because what was done to you was wrong, and because I'm not particularly fond of Brother Adalbert and his zealous brand of faith." He helps you drink from a flask containing something that tastes of herbs and honey. Almost immediately, the pain begins to dull around the edges. "This will help with the fever and pain," Edwin explains. "But we need to get you somewhere safe to treat these wounds properly." "Can't go back," you mumble, gesturing vaguely toward your branded forehead. "No," Edwin agrees grimly. "Not to the village. But I know people, others who have fallen afoul of the church or local lords. There's a sort of alternative community in the forest beyond the northern hills. With extreme care, he helps you onto his cart, positioning you so that your flayed back doesn't touch the wooden boards. The movement sends fresh waves of agony through you despite his caution. "It's a day's journey," he warns, "and not an easy one, but it's your only chance." As the cart begins to move, jolting over the rutted road, you drift in and out of consciousness. Edwin's voice becomes a distant anchor to reality as he tells you about where you're going. "They call it Sanctuary," he explains. "Started as a leper colony decades ago, but it's become a haven for others who don't fit within traditional society. Former criminals, women accused of witchcraft, but who escaped burning, monks who questioned church doctrine too loudly, even a defrocked priest or two. Through the haze of pain and fever, you manage a question. How do they survive?" Edwin smiles grimly. "Some hunt, some forage, some have skills valuable enough that nearby villages will trade with them through intermediaries like myself. They've built a life outside the system that rejected them." The cart leaves the main road, turning onto a barely visible track that winds into increasingly dense forest. Each bump and jolt is an exercise in agony. "Almost lost you there," Edwin remarks as you regain consciousness after particularly brutal stretch of terrain. "Stay with me. We're getting close." The forest canopy thickens overhead, filtering the sunlight into dappled patterns. The air grows cooler, damper. You hear the sound of running water somewhere nearby. "Halt!" a voice calls from the trees. "Identify yourself." "It's Edwin," your rescuer calls back. "I bring someone in need of sanctuary." A figure emerges from behind. A massive oak. A man with a hood pulled low over his face and a crossbow held ready, though not aimed directly at you. "Another one?" the sentinel asks, approaching cautiously. Brother Adalbert has been busy, Edwin confirms grimly. The sentinel peers at you, taking in your branded forehead and the visible evidence of your punishment. Blasphemy and dark consorting, he reads from your brand with a grim chuckle. Creative. My own is simply thief, though I swear the bread I took wouldn't have fed a mouse. He steps back, gesturing for Edwin to continue. Follow the path. They'll be expecting you at the settlement. The cart rumbles forward again, deeper into the forest. After what seems like hours, but is probably only minutes, you emerge into a clearing where a collection of structures stands. Some stone, some wood, some little more than lean-tos covered, with branches and pine needles. People move about the settlement, carrying water, tending small garden plots, repairing buildings. Many bear visible brands or other marks of punishment. Some have the telltale signs of leprosy, their damaged limbs wrapped in clean bandages. They stop to watch as Edwin's cart enters the clearing. A tall woman approaches, her face bearing a small brand on one cheek, the mark given to those accused of witchcraft, but mercifully not executed. Edwin, she greets him. You're earlier than expected. The situation developed quickly, he replies, gesturing to your broken form in the cart. This one needs immediate care, Marta. The woman, Marta, examines you with penetrating eyes. Flogging, branding, and is that a trial by ordeal, burn on the hand? Someone had a very bad week. Despite everything, you find yourself laughing. A painful wheezing sound that threatens to tear your damaged back further. The sheer understatement of her assessment strikes you as the first genuine thing you've heard in days. Let's get them to the healing house, Marta decides. Can you walk at all? You try to sit up and promptly lose consciousness. You wake to the sensation of something cool and soothing being applied to your back. The pain is still there, but dulled, manageable. Back with us, are you? Marta's voice comes from behind you. Good. I was beginning to worry the fever had cooked your brain. You're lying on your stomach on a pallet of surprisingly clean straw covered with linen. The room is small but neat, with bundles of dried herbs hanging from the rafters and shelves, lined with clay pots and wooden boxes. How long? You manage to ask. 3 days, Marta replies, continuing to apply salve to your wounds. The infection had a good hold on you. Another day without treatment, and you'd have been beyond our help. Thank you, you whisper. Marta makes a dismissive sound. Save your thanks. You're not out of danger yet, and healing will be a long road. Besides, we don't help out of charity but necessity. Every person here contributes to our survival. What will I contribute? You ask, genuinely, curious about your place in this community of outcasts. That depends on what you know how to do, doesn't it? Marta moves into your field of vision, wiping her hands on a cloth. What were you before? The question hits you harder than expected. Before. A lifetime ago. You tell her your trade, your skills, the life you had that now seems like a half-remembered dream. Marta nods thoughtfully. Useful. Once you're healed enough, you'll find a place here. And if I want to leave? To start over somewhere else? Her expression softens slightly. You can leave any time you're able, but with that brand on your forehead, there's nowhere in Christendom you'll be welcome except among others like us. Outcasts, lepers, the condemned. She gestures around the small room. This isn't paradise. We struggle. We go hungry in harsh winters. We live in fear of discovery and persecution. But we live with a kind of freedom, too. No lords demanding taxes, no priests extracting tithes, no neighbors watching for signs of heresy or witchcraft. A weak smile finds its way to your lips. No Brother Adalbert. No Brother Adalbert, Marta agrees with a small laugh. Though God knows there are others like him everywhere. She helps you drink a bitter herbal concoction that immediately makes your eyelids heavy. Rest now, she says, her voice already seeming to come from a great distance. Tomorrow, if you're stronger, you can meet the others. As sleep reclaims you, you realize something surprising. For the first time since your ordeal began, you feel a tiny flicker of hope. Not for a return to your old life, that door is permanently closed, but for the possibility of a new existence among people who understand what it means to be branded by injustice.